When the new Rheingold was introduced in summer 1962, it was the first train after the war to reach a top speed of 160 km per hour. As the latest express locomotive, however, the E10, didn't quite reach the speed, and the proposed high-speed locomotive E01 was never built. A new locomotive was needed. Or was it? While already in 1939, the National Railway of Germany had electric locomotives with a top speed of 180 km per hour, namely the first two prototypes of the class E19, with two more following the year after, the changed demands as well as the damaged and worn rail infrastructure of post-war Germany rendered such high speeds redundant, and the E19 was relegated to 140 km per hour. Also, the considerations for a new electric high-speed locomotive, the proposed E01, were very soon put to the side, leaving the 1957 introduced passenger locomotive E10 as the flagship of the Deutsche Bundesbahn, the Federal Railway of West Germany. With the introduction of the new Rheingold in 1962, the E10 was therefore the only reasonable choice of traction. Its top speed, however, was slightly short with 150 km per hour, when 160 were demanded from the schedule. A newly developed locomotive, on the other hand, was out of question, as only 6 machines were allocated for the Rheingold. A solution was found nonetheless, one fully conforming to the spirit of standardization. Rather than developing a new machine, the existing design of the E10 was taken and modified when necessary to reach the desired performance, forming the new subclass E10.12. Reaching the desired top speed of 160 km per hour on its own wasn't difficult, as this could simply be achieved by altering the gear ratio from 1 to 2.1 to 1 to 1.9. This change alone, however, would have resulted in increased wear and rough riding, as the serial bogies were simply not suitable for such high speeds. Therefore, a new type of bogie, developed by Henschel, which had already been successfully tested earlier, was used. The body rested here on a cradle, resulting in the desired smoothness, even at high speeds. Also, the regular E10s with the top speed at 150 km per hour would profit from them. Due to the high costs of the Henschel bogies, however, the regular ones never received them. Apart from these technical changes, also the visuals received some dramatic modifications. After all, the Rheingold was supposed to be the star train of the Bundesbahn. The cab ends were noticeably slanted, with a V-shaped crease in the middle, gaining the locomotives with this body, the nickname Bügelfalte, the German word for the ironed-in crease and pants. Along with it, the driver received larger front windows and 2 small side windows. The windows to the engine room, on the other hand, were dropped, in favor of a continuous and partially cosmetical radiator band. In addition, both front ends of the frame received a fully enclosed skirt, completing the streamlined appearance. Compared to the regular E10s, which were shaped more like a brick really, the streamlined E10.12 had unsurprisingly a lower air resistance, albeit not by much. The final special feature of the new locomotives was the paint scheme, which was carried out in accordance with the new Rheingold wagons, cobalt blue with a beige window band and black-grey skirts. Initially, the Deutsche Bundesbahn ordered 6 examples of the E10.12. However, the order was placed too late for the locomotive industry to deliver them in time for the 1962 summer timetable coming into effect in late May of that year. As no other locomotives could efficiently fill this gap, a makeshift solution was required. 6 regular E10s that were already under construction received the modified gear ratio required for the top speed of 160 km per hour, as well as the new Rheingold paint scheme, but not the new body shape, and only one of them received the Henschel bogies, leaving the rest with the aforementioned rough riding abilities. Between October and March of the following year, the proper Rheingold locomotives were finally delivered, replacing the stopgap machines, which were then modified back to the regular E10 state. And then the whole saga repeated itself. The following year, due to the great success of the new Rheingold, the Deutsche Bundesbahn also updated the Rheinpfeil with new rolling stock based on the Rheingold. But once again, the order for the 5 additional locomotives, classified as E10.13, was placed so late that they could not be delivered in time. And yet again, just as the original stopgap machines had been converted back to regular E10s, new makeshift locomotives were required. and like the first time, conventional E10s from the current production were outshopped with the respective paint scheme and modified gear ratio. But this time all of them received the Henschel bogies. With the delivery of the actual locomotives between October 1963 and February of the following year, they also returned back into regular E10 state. From a technical standpoint, the newly delivered class E10.13 is identical to the E10.12, but changing their appearance quite drastically, features handrails and steps on both ends to make routine cleaning of the windscreens easier. The 160 km/h fast Super E10s proved their worth and became the showpieces of the Deutsche Bundesbahn, often being shown off at special occasions. And when in 1965 the Rheingold and Rheinpfeil were upgraded to Trans-Europe Express trains, they received another equally smart livery. In accordance with international TEE standards, the cobalt blue was dropped in favor for the iconic purple red. While there would be never more than 11 examples of them, in 1964 the streamlined body was also adapted for the regular E10s. And starting in early 1968, even an additional 20 locomotives geared for 160 km/h were delivered for other high-class passenger services. These, however, were only equipped with a modified variant of the standard bogies, which were wearing out very fast. But this is an entirely different story. While these Super E10s can be considered successful locomotives that achieved exactly what they were intended for, their reign as the star locomotives of West Germany didn't last very long. Already in 1961, the considerations for a newly developed proper high-speed locomotive were picked up again, and in 1965, the first prototypes of the E03 were outshopped with the Syrian machines, now named Class 103, following 5 years later. With a top speed of 200 km/h, the intercity locomotives became the new stars and would soon also overtake the Rheingold and Rheinpfeil trains. Now part of the Class 112, the Super E10s saw continued use for express trains and were obvious choices for specials, but were more and more relegated to less prestigious duties, including commuter trains. Finally, by the early 1990s, it became obvious how worn out these machines were, from the strain of long distances and high speeds. Frequent repairs and failures resulted in 1991 to their top speed being restricted to 120 km/h. The same year, by the way, they were also reclassified to Class 113 to allow an East German locomotive class to take the numbers. The high demand for passenger locomotives due to the reunification of Germany, however, prevented their withdrawal. Instead, soon after, they were thoroughly overhauled. Many worn-out parts were exchanged with newly manufactured ones, and the locomotives re-entered service with their original top speed. As such, it was not before 2014 when the final 3 examples faced their withdrawal at last, ending their careers after more than 50 years in service. Or did it? The TRI Train Rental GmbH purchased 2 of them for yet another complete overhaul. Backdated to the purple, red and beige paint scheme, they returned soon into active service and lead special trains to this day. 2 further examples are preserved too, but not operational, resulting in a total of 4 survivors of 11 examples built. An outstanding rate, but not in the slightest surprising, as they were once the flagships of the Deutsche Bundesbahn, and as offsprings from the electric standard scheme, are versatile in service and comparatively easy to maintain, which makes them perfect for hauling excursion trains and heritage specials. The E10.12 and .13, a small locomotive class for a niche demand, and at the same time the showpiece of the Deutsche Bundesbahn, could prove its worth not despite, but rather because being derived from a standard design. Once ordered, it could be quickly delivered and was the perfect fit for its intended purpose, and at the same time versatile enough to be also used elsewhere. It went even beyond, in giving back to the standard E10 in lending its streamlined body shape, ensuring its reputation as an icon. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Super E10's history. I hope you enjoyed the journey, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time here at Steel Bridge Models.